Hello. When a child loses their parents, they are called an orphan. However, there is no word to describe the parents who lose their beloved child. Perhaps because the old bearing the young is such a profound grief, no amount of time can truly heal it. In today's video, I bring you a tragic case where a mother discovers that her beloved daughter, whom she has cared for all these years, was murdered in their very home. Let's dive into the case together. Aomori is a prefecture in Japan, known as the Land of the Rising Sun, located in the northern part of Honshu Island, surrounded by the sea on three sides, giving it very favorable geographical conditions. In the southeast of Aomori lies Hachimantai, the second largest city in the prefecture, with a population of about 330,000. When talking about Hachimantai, one cannot overlook the fishing industry here, as it boasts one of the highest seafood outputs in Japan. Besides the fishing industry, Hachimantai is also famous for its stunning natural scenery, surrounded by majestic mountains and lush green fields. Especially in spring, cherry blossoms bloom everywhere, attracting thousands of tourists. With its favorable geography, rich nature, and unique cultural heritage, Hachimantai is truly a captivating destination worth exploring and experiencing when visiting Aomori Prefecture, Japan. The central figure of today's case is Miyako Wakana, born in 1989. At the time of the incident, she was just 14 years old. Miyako had a deep passion for ballet and dreamed of becoming a professional ballet dancer when she grew up. At that time, Miyako was in her second year of middle school. Her family lived in a small house in downtown Hachimantai. The family consisted of 5 members. The father, 47 years old, frequently traveled for work, and the mother, 46 years old, worked as a healthcare professional at a local hospital. The couple had 3 children, the eldest son, 21, who was rarely home, the second son, 16, who was in high school, and Miyako, the youngest daughter, who was in her second year of middle school. Since the father and eldest son were often away, the household usually consisted of the mother, the second son, and Miyako. Aside from her regular studies, Miyako participated in several other activities. Wednesdays were the busiest days for her. After school, she joined the school's track and field club. In the evening, she had ballet practice. Although her schedule was quite packed, Miyako thoroughly enjoyed and relished these activities. She always strived to do well in both her studies and extracurricular activities. For her, these activities were not just obligations, but also passions and opportunities to grow. However, on one fateful Wednesday afternoon, tragedy struck Miyako's family, abruptly ending the bright future she was destined for. Wednesday, October 27, 1993, was a sunny day. At 7:25 a.m., Miyako left for school as usual. Her mother and second brother also went out, and everyone in the family became busy with their own tasks. Before they knew it, it was 2:25 p.m., and the school bell rang, signaling the end of classes. That day, Miyako and a few classmates stayed behind for classroom duty. Miyako was part of the track and field club, and the team usually practiced at 3:30 p.m. every Wednesday. So after finishing her classroom duties, Miyako immediately went to the designated meeting spot to gather with the other club members before they started running. At 5:45 p.m., Miyako finished her track practice and walked home with 2 friends. Every Wednesday, the 3 would stop by a grocery store to see if there were any snacks before heading home. However, this time, Miyako suddenly said she needed to be home before 6 p.m. Her friends found it a bit odd and asked her why, but Miyako didn't explain. At 5:53 p.m., Miyako and her friends arrived at Honhachinohe Station, the train station closest to their school, just about 1 kilometer away. This station was also not far from Miyako's house, only about 700 meters. After arriving at the station, Miyako's 2 close friends boarded the train to go home. Miyako said goodbye to her friends and began walking home alone. At 6:23 p.m., Miyako's mother arrived home. She noticed that the house lights were on, indicating that Miyako had already returned. However, her sharp motherly instincts quickly drew her attention to the broken glass on the floor, clearly signaling that something was wrong. She hurriedly took out her keys to unlock the door, but found it was already unlocked. As she pushed the door open, she was horrified to see a long bloodstain down the hallway. Panicking, she rushed to check all the rooms, and when she reached the bedroom, she found Miyako lying motionless on the floor, a terrifying scene that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Despite her shock, she had to suppress her grief to run outside and ask a neighbor to call the police. Miyako's neighbor immediately made the call, and the police arrived at the scene shortly afterward, securing the surrounding area. Miyako had multiple stab wounds, with the fatal one to her heart being the direct cause of her death. Her mouth was taped shut, and her hands were tied behind her back. Additionally, she had a minor wound on her back, not caused by a knife. Miyako was dressed in her school sports uniform, with a blanket covering her lower body, and a knife was found next to her. It was estimated that Miyako died between 6 p.m. and 6:23 p.m. The police discovered multiple shoe prints and bloodstains in the hallway of Miyako's house. Notably, these prints did not belong to the victim's family, leading the police to suspect they were left by the perpetrator. To the right of the entrance was the kitchen, which showed no signs of a struggle. Upon inspecting the bedroom and bathroom on the left side of the hallway, the police found everything tidy, with no signs of disorder. In the bedroom at the end of the hallway, Miyako's backpack and keys were on the bed. In the living room, the police found a heater turned on, an empty coffee can, 2 cigarette butts, and a roll of tape, the same type used to bind Miyako's mouth. According to Miyako's mother, no one in their family smoked, so those items likely belonged to the suspect. However, the police couldn't find any fingerprints on these objects. As for the knife found next to Miyako's body, it was a kitchen knife from the victim's home, but it wasn't the weapon that caused her injuries. The police also did not find the suspect's fingerprints on the knife. Thus, the actual murder weapon remained unknown. The bedroom window was broken, and since there were more glass shards outside than inside, the police suspected the perpetrator had broken the window from inside the house. The windows of the bathroom, toilet, and living room were all locked. The police suspected the killer might have been a burglar who broke into the house through a window and happened to encounter Miyako returning home from school. A struggle ensued in the hallway, during which Miyako was fatally stabbed in the heart. The killer may have then attempted to assault Miyako and dragged her into the bedroom. At that moment, Miyako's mother arrived home, forcing the perpetrator to flee through the window. However, the police did not find any footprints or fingerprints around the back window. Apart from the hallway and Miyako's mother's bedroom, the other areas of the house were undisturbed. It was known that the Miyako household had 3 sets of keys, one with her mother, one with her brother, and one with Miyako herself, and none were missing. The other windows in the house showed no signs of forced entry, and the front door had no marks of tampering. Therefore, the police ruled out the possibility of a robbery. They were still unsure how the killer had entered the house and what the motive for the crime was. Miyako's house was located in a densely populated neighborhood, and since it was the evening rush hour, most of the neighbors were home. The police hoped to find witnesses. According to their investigation, at 5:53 p.m. that evening, Miyako had parted ways with her 2 friends at the subway station and then walked home alone. The neighbors reported seeing Miyako walk past their house at 5:58 p.m., and at that time, the lights in her house were still off. Based on the walking time and the neighbors' statements, it was estimated that Miyako arrived home around 6 p.m. 16 neighbors living nearby reported hearing a window break between 6:15 p.m. and 6:20 p.m., and some even heard a girl's cry for help. One neighbor said that after hearing the cry, he immediately went outside to check, but after hearing nothing more and not knowing where the cry had come from, he went back inside. Miyako's mother arrived home at 6:23 p.m., and 15 minutes later, at 6:38 p.m., the police and ambulance arrived at the scene. Miyako's mother usually returned home around 7:30 p.m., but that day she came back over an hour and a half earlier, at 6:23 p.m. She explained that every Wednesday, Miyako had ballet practice at 7 p.m., about a 10-minute walk from their house, and she usually left at around 6:50 p.m. On that day, since she had agreed with Miyako to go watch her ballet performance, Miyako's mother came home earlier than usual. Additionally, Miyako's ballet costume was expected to be delivered to their house that day, requiring someone to sign for it. At 6:23 p.m., Miyako's mother arrived home. She noticed that the house lights were on, suggesting that Miyako had already returned. However, her sharp maternal instincts quickly spotted a broken glass door with shattered pieces scattered on the floor, clearly indicating something was amiss. She hurriedly took out her keys to unlock the door, only to find it wasn't locked. Upon pushing the door open, she was horrified to see a long blood trail in the hallway. Panicking, she ran through the house, checking each room. When she reached the bedroom, she found Miyako lying motionless on the floor, the horrifying scene searing itself into her memory forever. Despite her overwhelming grief, she managed to run outside to ask a neighbor to call the police. Miyako's neighbor contacted the police, who quickly arrived and cordoned off the area. Miyako had multiple stab wounds, with the fatal one piercing her heart, leading directly to her death. Her mouth had been taped shut, and her hands were tied behind her back. Additionally, there was a minor wound on her back, which was not caused by the knife. Miyako was wearing her school sports uniform, and a mat covered her lower body. Next to her was a knife. The estimated time of her death was between 6 p.m. and 6:23 p.m. The police discovered numerous shoe prints and bloodstains in Miyako's hallway. Notably, these prints did not match any of the family members, leading the police to suspect they belonged to the perpetrator. To the right of the entrance was the kitchen, where no signs of a struggle were found. Upon inspecting the bedroom and bathroom on the left side of the hallway, the police noted that everything was neatly arranged with no signs of a disturbance. The bedroom was at the end of the hallway, with Miyako's backpack and keys on the bed. In the living room, the police found a heater turned on, an empty coffee can, 2 cigarette butts, and a roll of tape, the same type used to tape Miyako's mouth. Miyako's mother informed the police that no one in their household smoked, so these items likely belonged to the perpetrator. However, the police could not find any fingerprints on these objects. As for the knife found next to Miyako's body, it was a kitchen knife from the family's home, but it was not the weapon used to inflict her wounds. The police also failed to find the perpetrator's fingerprints on the knife. This left the actual murder weapon as an unresolved mystery. The window in the room was shattered, and with more debris outside than inside, the police deduced that the window had been broken from the inside. The bathroom, toilet, and living room windows were all locked. The police suspected that the perpetrator might have been a burglar who entered through the window and encountered Miyako when she returned home. A struggle ensued in the hallway, during which Miyako was stabbed in the heart. Afterward, the assailant may have tried to assault Miyako and dragged her into the bedroom. Just then, Miyako's mother returned home, forcing the assailant to escape through the window. However, the police did not find any footprints or fingerprints around the back window. Apart from the hallway and Miyako's mother's bedroom, other areas of the house were clean and undisturbed. It was known that the Miyako family had 3 sets of keys, one with her mother, one with her brother, and one with Miyako, all of which were accounted for. The other windows in the house showed no signs of forced entry, and the front door bore no marks of tampering. Therefore, the police ruled out robbery as a motive. They were still unable to determine how the perpetrator had entered the house or what the motive for the crime was. Miyako's house was located in a densely populated area, and since it was early evening, most neighbors were likely at home. The police hoped to find witnesses. According to their investigation, Miyako had parted ways with her 2 friends at the train station at 5:53 p.m. and then walked home alone. Neighbors reported seeing Miyako pass by at 5:58 p.m., at which time the house lights were still off. Based on the walking time and the neighbors' testimony, Miyako likely arrived home around 6 p.m. 16 neighbors reported hearing the sound of a window breaking between 6:15 p.m. and 6:20 p.m., and some even heard a girl screaming. One person said that after hearing the scream, he immediately went outside to check. But hearing nothing further and being unsure of the direction of the sound, he went back inside. Miyako's mother arrived home at 6:23 p.m., and 15 minutes later, at 6:38 p.m., the police and an ambulance arrived at the scene. Miyako's mother usually returned home around 7:30 p.m., but that day she returned over an hour earlier, at 6:23 p.m. She explained that Miyako had ballet practice every Wednesday at 7 p.m., which was about a 10-minute walk from home. Miyako usually left around 6:50 p.m. That day, because she had promised to watch Miyako's ballet performance, her mother came home earlier than usual. At that time, Miyako's ballet costume was also expected to be delivered by the postman, and someone needed to be home to sign for it. The mysterious death of little Miyako has drawn widespread attention from the public. Some speculate that this was a well-planned crime committed by someone close to the victim, with the perpetrator wearing gloves during the act. The cigarette butts and the black tape found at the scene are believed to have been left behind by the culprit. The knife used in the murder was also not found. If this had been a burglary, the perpetrator would likely have carried a knife, but the presence of the tape suggests otherwise. Additionally, there were no signs indicating that the perpetrator was targeting any valuables in the house. Some believe that on the day of the incident, the victim may have been waiting for someone, and that person was the killer. According to this theory, although the victim and the perpetrator were acquainted, they weren't particularly close, which made the victim somewhat cautious. After returning home, the victim carefully placed her backpack and keys on the bed in her bedroom before heading to the living room to turn on the heater, preparing to welcome the not-so-close guest. Not long after the guest arrived, and Miyako opened the door to let him in, leading him to the living room. Perhaps during the interaction, the guest made Miyako uncomfortable and fearful, as he not only smoked but also spoke in a suggestive and inappropriate manner. Realizing that the situation was becoming increasingly dangerous, Miyako decided to take advantage of a moment when the guest was distracted to quickly run out to the hallway, intending to call for help. However, the guest quickly pursued her. In her panic and in an attempt to defend herself, Miyako ran into the kitchen and grabbed a knife. Seeing Miyako with the knife, the perpetrator approached and overpowered her. In her struggle to escape, Miyako tried to run towards the front door, and in the process she used her left knee to break the glass, which might explain why her left knee was injured. The police also agreed with the hypothesis that the broken door glass could have been caused by Miyako's desperate attempt to escape a dangerous situation. At this moment, Miyako continued to cry for help, hoping someone would hear and come to her rescue. Seeing this, the perpetrator quickly covered Miyako's mouth with the tape he had brought with him to silence her. He then dragged her into the bedroom with the intent of harming her. However, just as he was about to carry out his act, Miyako's mother returned home, forcing him to abandon his plan and escape through the window without having time to erase the evidence he left behind. Another theory, followed by some observers, suggests that since Miyako's father was rarely home, her mother had to bear the burden of raising two children and managing the household expenses alone. This difficult situation may have provided the perpetrator an opportunity to approach Miyako's mother. He took advantage of her hardships, building and maintaining a special relationship with her, even going so far as to sponsor Miyako's ballet lessons. On the day of the incident, which coincided with the arrival of Miyako's ballet costume, it is possible that the three had arranged to meet to discuss the matter. Since she wasn't sure when the man would arrive, Miyako's mother told her to stay home for about 20 minutes, promising to return before 6:30 p.m. This created an opportunity for the perpetrator to meet Miyako alone. Perhaps upon discovering her daughter had been harmed, the first person Miyako's mother thought of was this man. However, due to the illicit relationship between her and the suspect, she was not inclined to speak out or report him. Some believe that the perpetrator was the person in the car seen by the neighbor. The criminal may have been planning for a long time, watching the area for 2 months, and waited for the right moment when Miyako was home alone to strike. The weapons he used weren't bought on the day of the crime, but had been prepared months in advance, making it difficult for the police to track any leads. However, there are those who disagree with this theory, arguing that if this was a premeditated act, the perpetrator must have had a grudge against Miyako or her family. Yet after investigation, the police could not find anyone with a known conflict with Miyako's family. Another theory suggests that the perpetrator could have been a neighbor who was familiar with Miyako's family, but not particularly close to them. That day, he saw Miyako return home alone and developed an evil intention. So he brought some tools to her house, intending to scare her. When he entered the house, a confrontation ensued, and because Miyako knew the perpetrator well, he feared being exposed and killed her before fleeing to his own home. When the police investigated the neighbors, the perpetrator somehow kept his composure and managed to escape suspicion. However, this still doesn't explain why Miyako had to come home at 6 p.m. and wait until 6:20 p.m., or whether the person she was waiting for was indeed the perpetrator. Under Japan's previous criminal procedure law, the statute of limitations for intentional murder and other serious crimes was 15 years, but this was amended twice. In 2004, the statute of limitations for intentional murder was extended to 25 years. In 2010, the statute of limitations for serious criminal cases was abolished, meaning that as long as there is sufficient evidence, the case can be prosecuted indefinitely. However, this case occurred in 1993, so the new law does not apply, and the statute of limitations for this case expired on October 27, 2008. It is truly unfortunate that the death of the hopeful young girl, Miyako Wakana, will never be fully brought to light, and the culprit may still be living freely, unpunished for what he did to her. In the end, the victim's family remains the most anguished, not knowing why their loved one had to suffer such a tragic fate. What do you think? Why do you think the perpetrator acted this way? Leave your thoughts below the video. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and goodbye. See you in the next video.